Good morning. This is your quick little lesson notes for quadratic solving using the square root property. And so we talked about perfect squares before. So we're going to be looking for those. If you want to fill those in on your chart, you can, but perfect square just means when you multiply a number times itself. So 3 times 3 is 9. So 9 is a perfect square. We want to know perfect squares. And so it says, is 256 a perfect square? And it would be the next one. You can use the square root button on your calculator, the little check mark button, or you can just keep your list going. 322 is not a perfect square. 529 is. And so, again, use the square root button. Looks like a check mark. So if you put that in your calculator, you'll be able to tell you should get 23. Okay? So basic introduction here. You would subtract 2, right? You would add 2. You would multiply by 2. These are all things we learned first semester. Divide by 2. So the opposite of squaring a number is to take the square root. So simple little quiz here. The answer would be 2 and negative 2. You have to do both because negative 2 squared is 4. So 5 and negative 5. Sometimes we write plus or minus 5 or plus or minus 2. Plus or minus 7. Okay, so this is on your paper. Pause and write your steps. Okay, to use the square root, there can only be an x squared term, not an x term, no b term there. So step 1, isolate the x squared. Step 2, take the square root. Step 3, 2 solutions. Okay, remember isolate means get by itself. So some of these are already isolated. So all you have to do is take the square root to solve. You get plus or minus 12. Take the square root to solve, plus or minus 4. Take the square root to solve, plus or minus 15. So easy to solve when they're already isolated. Now when you have ones like this, you have to actually get the squared by itself. So c squared equals 49. Then we can take the square root, plus or minus 7. Add 4. B squared equals negative 16. If you try to take the square root, that's called an imaginary number. Your calculator will give you an answer, but we just write imaginary. You'll learn more about imaginary numbers later on. Add 5, add 5. So we're just doing like we would with a regular equation. When you take the square root, you get plus or minus 9. So again, isolating, treat it just like it's in the other variable that you solved for. And then take the square root. Use your plus or minus sign. Divide by negative 4. Plus or minus 4. Divide by negative 3. Take the square root. So not too much of a difficult stretch there. Just make sure you don't have any negatives. So go ahead and pause your video right now and finish solving these, and then push play so we can talk about them. So minus 21, 5x squared equals 0. Divide by 5, x squared equals 0. So x equals 0. You can take the square root of 0. Minus 10. Divide by negative 2. R squared equals 16. Square root plus or minus 4. Divide by 6. Take the square root. So pretty straightforward. That's your examples for now. We'll practice more in class on Monday, so you can get back to your other activities that you're working on.